Welcome to my running solo and GM-less games video. My name is Roosevelt Cooper from Golden Acacia Gaming, and in this video I'm going to demonstrate to you how you can use a fate chart from the Mythic Game Master Emulator system to play tabletop role-playing games either by yourself or with your group without needing a game master. So when you're playing a tabletop role-playing game, the game master is typically the person who will describe the scene and what's going on. So for example, the game master might say, you are walking down a hallway in the dungeon. It is pitch dark. You can hear the sounds of running water as you make your way through this hallway. Suddenly, at the very end of the hallway, you come to a door. What do you do? And that's typically how a role-playing scene will be played out. So then, you as the player character, you would decide what your character do. Or you might have questions about the scene. So for example, let's say you decide that you want to go check out the door. One of the things you might want to ask your game master is the door locked? And so the game master will tell you, yes, the door is locked, or the door is not locked. However, if you're playing a tabletop role-playing game solo or without a GM, there's no additional person to tell you, yes, the door is locked, or no, the door is not locked. And so this is where a fate chart comes in, and this is where fate questions come in, using the Mythic Game Master Emulator system. So with a fate question is simply the same type of question you would ask a game master. You're going to ask Mythic. So in this exact same scenario, the question is the door locked? So you'll ask that question. And then the fate chart is how you will resolve that particular question. So with Mythic, there's a fate chart that you can consult that will answer that question for you. The very first thing you have to do is you have to determine what's the likelihood that the answer to your question is yes. So in this case, we have the dungeon door being locked. What's the likelihood that the dungeon door is locked? And in Mythic, there are a number of different likelihoods. You have certain, near certain, very likely, likely, 50-50, unlikely, very unlikely, nearly impossible, and impossible. So those are the different likelihoods that you can choose from. So you pick based upon what you know about what's going on in the adventure, the likelihood of that being the case. So in this case, we're pretty early on into the adventure, so don't know a whole lot about this dungeon. So I'm going to say that the door is likely to be locked. All right. So now that you've identified the likelihood of the answer being yes, you're then going to roll on the fate chart. So the way Mythic has it set up, there's 3 different numbers that are available on the fate chart. The first is a smaller number to the left. The second is a larger number in the middle. And the third is a smaller number to the right. So the larger number in the middle, that is the number you have to roll either exactly or below for the answer to your question being yes. So if you roll exactly that number or below that number, then the answer to your question is yes. If you roll higher than that number, then the answer to your question is no. Then the smaller numbers, the one to the left, is what you have to roll equal to or lower for the answer to be exceptionally yes. So that means that's whatever your question is, yeah, it's really a yes. And then the smaller number to the right, that is what you have to roll equal to or higher for the answer to your question to be exceptionally no. So once you have those numbers, you're going to roll to see what the answer is. So in this particular case, I said it was likely. So looking at the table, likely is a 65 or lower for the answer to be yes, the door is locked. If I roll higher than a 65, then the door is not locked. Now, if I roll a 13 or lower, then the answer is exceptionally yes. So I would need to determine what that means, but basically that means the door is really locked. And then if I roll a 94 or higher, then that is an exceptional no. So that means the door is really, really unlocked, whatever that means to me. So I'm going to go ahead and roll now to see if the door is locked. All right, so I rolled a 52. A 52 is lower than a 65. So that simply means yes, the door is locked in this case. So now that I know the door is locked, now I would have to decide what I want to do next. So in this case, I might have the rogue character to try to pick the lock, or I might have the fighter character to try to bust down the door. Whatever it is that I'm going to do in this particular case, I will now be able to decide that. Now, what if I rolled an exceptional yes? So an exceptional yes, I would decide what that means. So in this particular case, I might say, not only is the door locked, but the door is also trapped. Now, my player characters won't necessarily know the door is locked or trapped, but I now know that the door is locked and trapped. So if my characters don't search the door for traps, they're going to trigger the trap. So what would be an exceptional no? An exceptional no might be, not only is the door unlocked, the door is literally wide open and you could just walk on in. So that's pretty much how you would use the Mythic fate chart to be able to determine what's going on. Now, when you're using this, you don't have to do this for every single element in your play. You can improvise, you can make up what's going on. Where you want to use this is when you have something that you can reasonably question whether this is the case or not. So in this perfect example here, whether the door being locked or not, that's not necessarily something that I want to just decide. That's something that I would want to find out. So you don't need to do this for every single element for when you're playing the tabletop role-playing game, because then it's going to be boring. You're just going to be rolling all day. So you can make up a lot of the narrative within reason. Just use it when you come to a place where you're not reasonably certain what the answer is. Like in this particular case, going through a dungeon and coming across a door. I'm not certain whether the door is locked. So that's when I would use the fate chart to determine whether the door is locked. And there's other elements to it that I'll cover in another video, but that's the basic element of how to use a fate chart. You go through the narrative, and then when you come to a section where you're not sure what the answer is, then you will consult the fate chart. Hopefully you found that valuable, and go ahead and feel free to use that when you're playing your tabletop role-playing games.